Hello everyone, I am going to walk you through how to download a Procreate brush pack. So this is going to apply to those of you who've purchased my Procreate watercolor brush pack on Etsy, but the steps will apply also to anyone who has purchased any kind of digital download, be it on Etsy or someplace else. This is just a simple way of getting the files into your Procreate. So here I have my Google Drive page pulled up for you to see. When you purchase the brushes through my shop, this PDF, this instructions PDF, you will receive a copy of that, and it has a Google Drive link. I've blacked it out here for the video, but this is what it looks like when you get it. You'll click on the link. I recommend doing this while you're on your iPad, by the way, but you'll click on the link and it'll take you to this page right here with these two different files. The file on the left is the actual watercolor pack, so I'm going to click on it. And you'll see here, this big file down there is the actual Procreate file. So you'll download the file, click download, and then you should be able to go to your files and find it. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go to my Files app, pull this up, and you'll see under my under my Downloads tab, there's the zip file that you just downloaded. It's a zip file because it's a pretty huge file with all those brushes, the color palette, and the paper. All together, I had to do a one big zip file like that. But you'll see it's still downloading, it's still processing, but once it's done, then we'll be able to unzip that file and get to all those different items that you've just purchased. So now here, the file is downloaded, and you'll just click on it to unzip it. And now you'll see you'll have a folder of Elfshine Cottage Procreate Watercolor Pack. You'll click on that, and each of the three different files has all the different items in it. So there are two brush sets. One is the actual brushes, and the other one is the stamp set. So you'll simply click on the stamps, and it should be imported, and we'll just put together a new artwork here. And you'll be able to see under your brushes, here are all the brushes. They should just automatically import as a set, so it's all organized for you. They don't get lost in your other, collections. But so let's go back and do the rest of them. So we'll go back to our Files app. Now I'll do the stamps, do the exact same thing. It's just one touch and it's done. See here, now I've got at the top, that's the most recently added items. At the top are the watercolor stamps, and they're organized in the exact same way. Let's go back to the Files app. Now here's where you can download the watercolor palette. Again, you'll just click on the link and it will import it automatically. And now when you go to your colors, you'll go to your watercolor palettes, and you'll see here at the bottom, here's the new one that's been added. I have it here twice again because I made it, but down here at the bottom is or perhaps it's at the top. Yeah, I think the new one goes to the very top, just like the brushes. But either way, you will see, I'll just walk you through it real quick once again. So you click on your palettes, depending on what you have showing. I usually have the color wheel showing, but if that's what you have showing, you'll just go to this little grid here, the palettes tab at the bottom, click on that, and it should pull up. You can see it either as cards, or you can see it more compact like this. I like the more compact view, but if you want to see the actual names of the colors, which is kind of fun, these are actually named after real watercolor colors. This is based off of my absolute favorite watercolor palette. I use this palette for all of my work. This is my main working palette, and these names are based off of, like, for example, Potter's Pink, Dragon's Blood. Those are real watercolor pigment colors. So is Burnt Umber, things like that, Payne's Gray. So anyway, that's a little bit of a nerd diversion there. But the last thing we have is our paper. The paper is a little different to use. I have just taken photographs, high resolution photographs on a professional camera, and imported them as files, or picture files here. But what you'll do is when you're actually ready to create something, let's go back to Procreate here. So I've got my file pulled up. This is about I I think it was a 4x6. That's my typical working size. I work bigger too, but 4x6 is one of my favorites. So what you'll do is when you're ready to add the watercolor texture, you'll simply go to this Tools tab here, and you'll click Insert a File. And what you'll do is you'll want to go down to, let's see here, we're going to go back to my download so that I can find it easily. You may have to browse a little bit, but yeah, so there's our watercolor pack right there. Here's the paper folder, we'll click on that, and then there's the 3 textures you can pick from. So the French cold pressed paper is based off of, it's a photograph of Arches cold pressed watercolor paper. If you're a painter, you know that's basically the Cadillac of watercolor papers. And then the French rough paper, again, that's Arches, but it's a more rough texture or rougher texture than cold press. It's the roughest texture that watercolor paper comes in. And then the last one, German gray. It's a gray sketchbook that I have. I love the color of it. It's a beautiful, cool, almost pinky gray, purpley gray. And it's a beautiful texture, so I just wanted to throw that in there for you. But anyway, so I'll click on one. I'll do the rough. And there you go. It's imported and ready to go. You can resize it when you, I just undid it. Let's try that again. All right, there we go. So when you're importing it and you're wanting to resize it, make sure that you have uniform selected so that it stays the same perspective instead of warping the texture. So it automatically should default to uniform down there, the blue section that's highlighted. And then you can just make it bigger, make it larger. You can rotate it depending on the orientation of your paper. But then once you're ready to go, you'll just simply click outside that selection box or click off of the arrow. And there you go. It's all ready to go. And now you can rotate your paper and it's going to stay put. Now, before you actually begin painting on it, what you will need to do is click your Layers tab. And you'll need to go in and change the blending mode. See that capital N there? You'll click on that. And you'll want to go all the way up to the top to multiply. And then you'll leave that. And that way the watercolor texture will apply to all the layers as you go. You don't want to paint directly on it. Because as you're painting layers and maybe you have to go back and delete something, you'll have to delete that whole watercolor paper layer and start over. So I always do this first. I get my watercolor paper on there first, change the blending mode to multiply, and then I'll add a new layer. I like to work underneath the watercolor layer. Some people like to work on top of it. You can experiment and decide what preference you like best, but this will work for either one of those. But now you're all ready to paint. And once you're, done with that, you can choose from the brushes and from the stamps. I'm going to do another tutorial later actually demonstrating all the brushes for you, but this is just a really quick video. If you're having trouble downloading the pack, figuring out how to get it into Procreate and start using it, this is all that you need. So I hope that was helpful to you, and I hope you enjoy the watercolor pack.